Hello and welcome to Out and About Art, your PGTV source for all things art in Polk County. I'm your host, Dion Spires. Last month, Lakeland Community Theatre provided their audiences with a blast from the past when they presented their performance of Rock of Ages. The show, a love story about a small town girl and a city boy from South Detroit, features a number of popular 80s rock songs which had audiences singing and dancing in their seats. It was a rocking good time and was met with rave reviews. Check out some highlights from the run of their performance.
Lakeland Community Theatre is producing Rock of Ages, which is the biggest party on the planet as far as I'm concerned. It's a loosely based show on the 1980s hair band music. Last year at this time we did Grease, and that was really popular, and that's more 50s rock and roll. So we decided, and I decided, and the committee decided that we should stick to that rock and roll genre, just a little bit more modern. So Rock of Ages, I think had just closed in 2015. So it was available and the music's fun, and so we decided to go with it. And I think we're the first community theater in the area to produce it.
I wasn't super familiar with the musical. I'd never seen it. So I didn't really know what to expect. But after working with it and listening to the soundtrack and getting into it, I think it's an amazing show. And the guys that arranged the music, I mean, they did a fabulous job. I mean, they took great music and they made it even better. I mean, it's really, really fabulous arrangements, and I think the people are just going to dig it.
It's so much fun to do this element where you get to rock out, and it's not as serious and it's a little bit more playful rather than a traditional show that some people might find boring. I don't think anybody is going to find any of this boring, and we can just you can party, we can party, and together we're having that experience together.
I call it theater for people who don't like theater, because it just reaches a broad range of people that can really get into it and have fun and just experience the whole theater process, because the actors talk to the audience. They constantly break the fourth wall, and we always know we're in a show, we're in a musical, so it makes it fun. Kind of doesn't take itself too seriously.
For me, the big difference between doing Rock of Ages, this 80s rock music, and a more traditional musical like Hello Dolly or something, comes down to the sheer stamina required. I'm a classically trained singer, so most of those traditional Broadway shows I can get by singing in the way that I was kind of trained to sing, more classically. But in rock and roll, you can't do that as much. The audience has an expectation of what it should sound like. So like Steve Perry, I need to emulate more of that sound. Whether it be Poisoned or Journey or Foreigner, you have to emulate a little bit of that rock sound. So the stamina required to pull off singing those high notes constantly and consistently without it sounding dramatically different, that's the hard part for me.
They were very open and honest about that we were going to bring true life to the music, that we were going to try to sing it as hardcore and true that we were going to, and Pat's musical directing is spot on. It's unbelievable what he has not only done with the band but with the ensemble and lead singers. He makes sure every note is understood, and if you can't hit the note, or if it's something that's hard, he gives you alternatives. I haven't worked with many music directors who have appreciated you as a person and what you can bring, that then gives you an alternative if you need it, which sounds just as good. And then Alan brings such a beautiful understanding of that time period, because we do have a lot of younger kids in the show, and so he brings that rock element and that excitement to them so that they can appreciate it even if they didn't grow up with that music. So them as a team together have really done a great work of hand in hand, this is what we need to do, this is where we are, and this is how we get to our finished product.
We've got a fabulous cast, one of the best I've ever worked with. A combination of people that I've worked with before, plus a lot of really talented new people. And as far as the band, I know all these guys. They're young guys, a lot younger than me, but they are all top-notch musicians. And I knew they were capable of playing this stuff. And once people hear what we're doing here on the stage, I think they're going to be blown away.
The audience is, by the third number of the show, they get that this is a rock show. This isn't just a stage musical. This is a rock and roll concert. And they've got front row access, you know, they got front row seats. They got the best seats in the house. Any seat in this house is the best seat in the house for this show. We want you guys, the more you feed us, the more we feel energized. So that doesn't always get to happen. A lot of times it's just clapping and sighing. But this show, we get some boos, and we want them. We get the cheers, we get screams, we get ad-libs from the audience, we get participation. So yeah, this has been, it's a high. I mean, it really is. You can't get it from any of the other things in this show except for the audience. So it's a great experience in that regard.
Lakeland Community Theatre is currently holding summer camps and producing Hairspray Junior, which will open in September as part of their Eunice Fuller Theatre for Youth program. Their main stage season will begin on October 20th when the Demon Barber of Fleet Street himself comes to Polk County in their production of Sweeney Todd. Visit their website at www.lakelandcommunitytheater.com for more information. Now we're shifting gears to talk about a brand new art showcase bringing in artists from all over Florida. The Fine Art at the Magnolia Show will host its inaugural event later this month on August 19th and 20th in the historic Magnolia building on Lake Mirror. The show provides an opportunity for working artists in the Central Florida area to continue making profit close to home throughout the summer months. Here to tell me more about the event are Betsy Bohr, the curator for the show, and a fellow artist of hers, Marcia Morris-Mullins. How are you guys doing today?
Great, we're good.
Thank you for being here to talk about the show. It's an exciting show to come to our area. It's pretty unique and brand new. So I want to start off just by talking a little bit about what the event is. It's brand new. People don't know about it yet. So can you give me kind of a synopsis of what the Fine Art Show at the Magnolia is?
Well, Fine Art at the Magnolia is a first-generation show. It's happening at the Magnolia building in downtown Lakeland. We're going to be featuring 17 artists. It's indoors, so it's air-conditioned.
Which is very nice for Florida.
Yes, and it's set up as their individual spaces, like at Mayfair, where the artists have they're almost like their own little galleries, but they're inside and downsized so that it's easy to get in to see them.
And I know that you're pretty passionate about the reason why you guys are doing this. The reason being that there's not really a lot of opportunity like this for artists in Florida during this time of year. Can you elaborate on that for me?
Yes. I've been an artist myself, working the street art festivals for 20 years. So it became relevant to me that during the summer, after the street art festival market in Florida kind of dries up, there's not much opportunity for the artists who stay in the state, who make their mainstay living with the street art festivals as fine artists. So networking some of my artist friends and other artists, we decided there was a definite need to have an indoor summer show and make it small because the outdoor festivals just keep getting larger and larger and larger. We wanted something that was really small and intimate and focused on the artists and their livelihood. So that's where it's come from.
And Marcia, I'm sure that you have some connection to that too. You're an artist that's not from the Florida area, correct, originally?
Correct, yes.
So you've kind of moved into this and you've made the adjustment and experienced it firsthand that when the summer months hit and it gets really hot, the shows go elsewhere. So what has that been like for you?
Artists in the summer pretty much become dependent on either having a website or having return customers that have met them at shows and are in one form or another coming back to them for more purchases. Summer can also be used in a positive manner in terms of that being the time of year that you can be working on commissions. Right. But it really is there definitely is a dearth of exhibiting opportunities in Florida at this time of year.
So Betsy, tell me about, you said you've got 17 artists in the show, yourself being one of them. What types of media do you have in the show and where do you get your artists from?
Well, we are really fortunate that this first year show, which can be a little scary for artists who are actually professionals in the field, we have about 7, maybe 8 mediums that we're representing, and they're all top-notch. These are all top-notch artists, and that's one of the things that I wanted to especially cover, is that the market is being flooded with art that is mass-produced, and it's very difficult for the fine artists who make their living in this venue to compete against the market of art that's just flooding out there. And all of the artists at the Magnolia show are authentic. They're all creating by hand and making their own original art. So we're really fortunate that way. We have pottery, we have glass, we have basket fiber art, we have paintings, jewelry, yes, and I'm just incredibly honored with the artists who have replied to my call as the curator. This show was an invitational, and I sent out requests for artists to come and be a part of this wonderful event, and be in the ground making of it becoming an annual event. And they're coming. They're coming, and they're amazing, and I'm just incredibly honored. And we're also being recognized for what we're doing, in that the Polk Museum of Art just endorsed us.
Right, that's huge.
And it's huge. So what we've got developing here is something very unique and very special.
Now, how far is your reach of artists? Is it just the Florida area? Is it from all over?
I'm actually representing Florida artists because we're the ones, the show is about the hardship of the summer months for Florida artists. So we have artists coming in as far as St. Augustine, Melbourne Beach, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and then we also have artists that are right here, local, in Lakeland.
And Marcia, Betsy was talking about organic artists, and you are certainly an organic artist. You're a basket weaver.
Yes.
And what I was surprised to find out is that these materials that you use are 100% from a tree, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about your art.
I work largely with black ash, which means I literally start with the tree. I spend about a month in material prep each year. I go out into Cedar Swamp in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, wearing my muckers and with a saw slung over my shoulder, and been doing this for 30 years. And I cut down a tree, haul it in from I get help. Have assistants up there that help me lug the tree out of the woods, and I pound on the log with a 4-pound sledgehammer because the growth rings of black ash, the cells between them are very porous, so when you crush those cells, you can separate the growth rings from each other. So I literally dissect trees and down into little teeny tiny weavers. My favorite weaver width is about a 1/16 of an inch wide, and I create both form-based traditional styles. This is based on a traditional shaker style of basket, and I also explore forms. And I like to wrap things around antlers.
That one's really, really cool. And it's really unique. You wouldn't find that at every show.
No, absolutely not. And each one of these that I make is different. This truly is a one of a kind. There may be others out there that are similar, but nothing else that's exactly the same. The third piece that I brought with me was inspired by a chrysalid. Which is what a butterfly caterpillar forms a chrysalid kind of pod around it when it metamorphoses into a butterfly, and so this was inspired by that type of a pod. I do a lot of work that is inspired by natural enclosures, and I don't just work with ash. I work with other wood fibers. Walnut, oak, cherry, and a lot of willow as well.
Oh, that's really, really cool, and I can't even fathom how you begin to make something like that. It's not in my mindset.
Well, if I could get a black ash log up here, I'd hand you a sledgehammer and put you to work.
That's for another show, right?
Another show, yeah.
So how does one even begin to work in this art form? Like, how did you stumble upon basket weaving and dissecting trees?
Interestingly enough, I've been doing this for 30 years and had been, a neighbor of mine knocked on my door one day and said, hey, I want to save money by making baskets this year for Christmas presents. You want to learn this with me? We'll figure it out. We'll buy some books, and bought some rattan and learned the cheap way of making baskets. Rattan does not last the way black ash does. Mm-hmm. And I went to an art show up in Marquette, Michigan, and heard this pounding noise that was just, it was the percussion beat, and I was drawn to it. And there was an artist there who was a Potawatomi elder. He has since walked on, and got talking with him, and he said, you know, we will be in touch. And about 3 weeks later, there was a knock on my door, and it was this same artist saying that he had had a vision the night before that he was in danger of losing his wisdom of the traditions of black ash basketry, and that he needed to pass it on to someone that would hold it. He was going through kind of a tough period at the time. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. He took me out into the woods and taught me the traditions of black ash basketry, right down to making tobacco offering, thanking Mother Earth for providing a basket tree. And I have honored that tradition ever since.
That's awesome. Very organic start.
Yeah, that's about as organic as you can get, is pulling on rubber boots and going out into the swamp.
That's really, really cool and really, really unique to the show, which I think is a great selling point for the show. Betsy, can you talk about some of the other, maybe a couple other specific artists that stick out to you from this show?
Well, there's 17 and they all stick out. They're all really amazing and accomplished. We have a potter coming in from Orlando, John Callum, who makes beautiful raku pottery, and he has his own special technique on that. Truly, we're all about the authenticity of the artist, and the made by hand, truly made by hand, each artist. So, yeah, and Peggy Miller is coming. We have her jewelry hanging right here. Yes.
So you're a fan?
I'm modeling. Yes, I'm a fan of Peg's.
And it's just like this. It's just hours and hours and true commitment to their art, and that's who they are. And so fine art at the Magnolia is to emphasize that this is the livelihood of these artists, and the years and the dedication and devotion to their craft or their art, right? So that's what we're about.
That's awesome. And I love that you both are, well, you're very experienced in your art. Betsy, you've been doing it forever, and you're doing this to give opportunity to others because you truly understand. You've been there. You've done it. Can you elaborate a little bit on what the hardship is for an artist in this time of year? Like, people who aren't artists don't necessarily understand. Like, when you hit this time of year,
that's true.
Why is it so hard?
There are artists that have some jobs that will help them get through the summer, that do other things. I mean, many of my artists too will teach. You know, they teach at universities or whatever, and during their summer programs. So there are options for artists to continue to grow and make a living. But in the street festival market specifically, and this is where I've made my living, in the street festival market, Mayfair typically marks the end of the season. And even though Mayfair draws like hundreds of thousands of people through the show, on Monday, it's gone. And the artists have packed up and left. And a great many people out there don't realize what these artists do or where they go or what becomes of them, you know, after Mayfair is gone. And for artists, the street festival artists, most of them will move into galleries or move into their studios and take advantage of the summer to create for the following season, which in Florida, the street festival market is from October to May. That's our season. So that leaves quite a few months that are just not much going on for us to be able to present our entire body of art like we can at Mayfair in these individual galleries that we have. We are all individual entrepreneurs. We all own our own gallery. It's just not brick and mortar, it's mobile. So we're creating that. That's what we're creating. And it's doing great. And I mean, I'm really excited because we're now started our last few weeks to go into our very first show. I mean, we're here, we're happening. It's super exciting.
There's no backing out now.
It took me literally 20 months to put this thing together. I traveled personally to the studios to visit the artists and make sure and verify that they are authentic, that they are creating their own work, because that is a really, really adamantly strong point and position that I have. And that's a true struggle for us, is competing against the mass markets. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for the explanation there and for the stories, because I really wanted to just help the viewers really understand what the purpose is behind this, because it's huge and it's important, and it is the reason you guys are doing it. And this event's going to be really exciting for our community here in the art community of Polk County. So thank you guys for talking to me about it, and I wish you guys the best of luck with your first one.
Oh, thank you so much for letting us have this opportunity.
Of course. The Fine Art at the Magnolia event will be held August 19th and 20th in the historic Magnolia building on Lake Mirror in Lakeland. Come on out to the free event to enjoy the fine art in this show and support local artists in our area. Now, over in Bartow, there's a group working to revitalize a portion of their art community in rebuilding the Orpheum Theater. The Orpheum dates back to the 1800s when it was built as one of Florida's first performance halls and called the Hughes Opera House. Over time, that building was bought and rebuilt and became the structure that stands today on East Main Street in Bartow. Over the last 2 years, a committee has taken on the project of rebuilding and reviving the theater to become a functioning theater and academy for performing arts. Here's some more information on that project.
This opera house began in 1885. And then in 1908, a man named T.L. Marquis bought the building and renovated it, and that's the brick that you see today. So this is, you know, almost 110 years old. It was an opera house in the beginning. That was really popular in America. You had Main Street opera houses that were 2-story, and upstairs you had opera houses, and downstairs you had businesses. So this had an opera performance hall, and opera was the loose term. We had vaudeville, comedy, all sorts of things. They had that on the second floor, and on the first floor they had a clothing shop. So that was kind of the history. Then into the 20s and well into the teens, it was a movie theater upstairs, and he called that the Orpheum, and that's kind of why we borrowed that name. And then in the 20s and 30s, they had the vaudeville shows and more dancing and singing and all of that. Into the 40s and 50s, it was a restaurant. Into the 60s and 70s, it was a bar. And then around the 80s, it just kind of fizzled out. Someone owned it. He had dreams of what he wanted to do with it, but they just never materialized. So in 2015, I came and looked at the building. I knew a little bit about its history, and I talked to the owner and said, this is what I want to do with it. Will you donate it? And he went home and talked to his wife and his accountant and called me back and said, okay, it's yours. As a performer, there were limited places for performing in the area, unless you do a really, really big hall, or you perform in a church or a bar, but there were no smaller spaces available. And then I was also teaching, and I was noticing there were limited places for rehearsals with kids. I was noticing, parents were sitting in the driveway, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if a mom could grab a cup of coffee while her kids are having lessons? And I just kind of kept looking at different buildings. And then when I saw this one and found out about its history, then it just took off. In the last 2 years, we acquired the building, which was given to us by donation. We established our 501c3 nonprofit, and we've had 3 or 4 fundraising events, as well as 5 or 6 community events that weren't fundraisers. They're just the kind of events that we're going to have here at the Orpheum. We've raised over $100,000. We've demolished the inside of the building, replaced the roof, replaced the facade, and done all of our architectural drawings, worked with structural engineers. We've kind of done all the prep work for the building renovations. They can expect those kind of small, intimate performances. Cabaret singers, jazz ensembles, small stage readings. Any big performance we'll have to do at the high school or the elementary school, but that's exciting to me, or maybe a barn or this, that, and the other. But we can seat 100, 125 people here. And for Bartow, that's plenty. This provides for the area, not just Bartow, but for our surrounding communities, first off, a unique performance space, because there's nothing like it in Central Florida. It also provides a place for kids' workshops outside of school for theater, dance, music, education outside of the school curriculum. I mean, we all know that schools can't really provide all the fine arts and performing arts education that we would like them to, and so it's our job to kind of come around them as a community and give kids what really helps them out in those fields. So not only that, but by having a building and not just being an organization, we're really a viable presence. People can see us on the street and say, oh, what's that? Oh, I want to see what they're doing, that sort of thing. The support has been overwhelming. I mean, everyone is so excited. I can't believe how enthusiastic they are. It has not taken a lot of coercing for support. People have just stepped up to the plate. They are so excited. We have needed this for so long. So the community has really risen to this challenge, and I have been so touched and so humbled and just really overwhelmed by the kind of support they've given us.
For updates on the progress of the Orpheum Theater and more information on how you can get involved, you can visit their website at www.theorpheumtheater.org. That's all the time that I have for this month, but there's always plenty happening with our local art community, so stick around to see more art events coming up in your area. As always, thank you for joining me, and tune in next month for more art out and about.